Hector had grown accustomed to the shadow. For 3 years, 7 months, and 14 days, Princess Zarathil of the Kellyan Empire had followed him in complete silence. Through diplomatic halls and war-torn battlefields, through celebrations and funerals, she was there, always 3 steps behind, never speaking, never explaining. The other humans found it unsettling. Jesse, Hector's partner and the Earth Coalition's chief negotiator, had warned him countless times. "She's royalty from a civilization that views us as barely sentient," Jesse had said during their last briefing. "Whatever game she's playing, it's not in our favor." But Hector had stopped trying to understand it. The Kellyans were enigmatic at best, hostile at worst. Their empire spanned 47 star systems. Their technology exceeded humanity's by centuries, and their military had never known defeat. When Earth had first made contact, the Kellyans had actually laughed, at humanity's crude jump drives and projectile weapons. Then the Vorthal came. The Vorthal swarm had torn through the galaxy like a cosmic plague, consuming everything in their path. Organic, mechanical, energy-based, it didn't matter. The swarm adapted, absorbed, and moved on. Dozens of civilizations fell within months. The proud Kellyan armadas, with their plasma cannons and quantum shields, were shredded like paper. Humanity survived through stubbornness and improvisation. When the swarm adapted to energy weapons, humans fell back on kinetic slugs. When shields proved useless, they used nuclear mines. When the Vorthal learned to predict tactical patterns, human commanders threw out the playbook entirely and fought with chaotic, unpredictable aggression. Hector had been there, in the trenches of Kepler 442b, when Princess Zarathil's royal guard was overrun. He'd found her pinned beneath debris, her elegant 6-limbed form broken and bleeding purple ichor. Any other species would have left her. The Kellyans had certainly abandoned enough human soldiers. But Hector had done what humans did, something stupid and brave. He'd carried her 5 kilometers through swarm territory, fighting off drones with nothing but a rifle and desperation. When he finally reached the evacuation point, she was still alive, barely. She'd looked at him with those 3 violet eyes, her translator device shattered, unable to speak. And then she touched his face with her upper right hand, a gesture he later learned was reserved for Kellyan royalty, acknowledging a life debt. That was 3 years ago. Since then, she'd followed him everywhere, silent, watching. The Kellyan Empire had formally withdrawn from her, declaring her spiritually bound by ancient customs. She'd gone from princess to exile, all because of a human who'd been too stubborn to let someone die. Jesse had tried everything to get Zarathil to speak, to explain, to give any indication of her intentions. The princess remained mute, communicating only through gestures and that unnerving, constant presence. Today, Hector stood on the observation deck of the ESS Valiant, watching reconstruction efforts on New Babylon. The war was over. Humanity and the surviving species had found the swarm's weakness, ironically, in human gut bacteria that the Vorthal couldn't adapt to without killing themselves. The galaxy was rebuilding. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Jesse's voice came from behind him. She stepped up beside him, her reflection ghostly in the viewport. "You know, she's right behind you, as always." Hector didn't turn. "I know. The council's decided," Jesse continued. "The Kellyans want her back. They're calling it a restoration of honor now that the war's done. They've requested, demanded, really, that you release her from whatever obligation she thinks she has. She's not my prisoner." "Tell them that." Jesse sighed. "Hector, this has to end. She's been following you for years without saying a word. It's not healthy for her or you. Just talk to her. Make her explain." Jesse left, and Hector finally turned. Zarathil stood exactly 3 steps away, as she always did. Her royal robes had been replaced long ago with practical human combat gear, modified for her physiology. She looked smaller somehow, without the trappings of her former life. "They want you back," Hector said quietly. "Your family. Your empire. You can go home now." Zarathil didn't move, her 3 eyes fixed on him with that same inscrutable expression. "I don't understand why you've done this," Hector continued, frustration creeping into his voice. I saved your life, fine, but 3 years? Following me in silence? What are you waiting for? What do you want me to say? The silence stretched between them like a physical thing. Hector had almost given up when Zarathal's hand moved to the translator device newly fixed at her throat. Her mandibles clicked softly. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes, crystalline and ancient. The translator rendered her words into English, but the emotion behind them was universal. I am learning how to be worthy of the one who taught me what honor truly means. Hector stared, the words hitting him like a physical blow. 3 years of silence, broken by a single sentence that reframed everything. The Kellyan speak of honor as conquest, she continued, the words flowing now like a dam had broken. We honor strength, victory, dominance. But you showed me different. Honor the honor of sacrifice without expectation, of compassion without calculation. You saved me when logic said you should run. You are human, yet you embodied what my people only pretend to be. She stepped forward, closing the 3-step distance for the first time in years. I have been silent because I was unworthy to speak to you. I have followed because I was learning. And now, she bowed, a deeply human gesture she must have studied. Now I understand. Humanity survived not despite being barely sentient, but because your deficiency in logic is actually surplus in something my people forgot. Empathy. Hector felt something shift in his chest. You didn't need to follow me for 3 years to learn that. Yes, Zarathal said simply. I did. Because humans don't just speak of values, they live them even when it costs everything. Outside the viewport, ships from a dozen species worked together to rebuild. And in that moment, Hector finally understood. She hadn't been following him in silence. She'd been learning humanity's greatest lesson, that true strength isn't in domination, but in the courage to care when caring makes no logical sense. So, he said finally, ready to go home? Zarathal's mandibles formed what he'd learned was a Kellyan smile. I'm home. With the species that saved the galaxy not through superiority, but through stubborn, illogical, beautiful humanity. And for the first time in 3 years, she walked beside him instead of behind.